Jerry, I was just saying, just right there, that I loved this book so much that I wanted to eat it. I don't know if you ever feel like that, that you
Oh,
just...
often.
Yes?
One of the first experiences that I had of writing was that I think the first time I started writing was because I was feeling very angry about my parents and about my general situation. So I started writing down the things that I felt, and I found that it calmed me down and it centered me. But I realized that if anyone ever had read it, they would be hurt by it. So I would eat my writing afterwards. Yeah, yeah. Actually,
Quite.
it wasn't very bad, and sometimes a little pepper helped.
Little garnishing. No, little sprinkle of.
Pepper the garni.
Well, this needed no garnishing. This needed no salt and pepper. It was delicious. I mean, I don't know about you all, but it's been really difficult for me to read. During the pandemic, post-pandemic, if there is such a thing, I think my attention span is a little here and there. But I sat with your book and it wouldn't let me go, and I wouldn't let it go. And Yuri, who's the character at the heart of this building's roman, is a character that I wanted to follow for life. So of course I want more books on Yuri. And I can sit here and of course demand that of you, and you will ignore me completely. But he's a character who is so tenderly and infuriatingly endearing. You know, one that you just didn't want to let go of. And I turned the last few pages feeling really bereft. You know, like you've lost a friend. You know that feeling. But I also, and I think this is where this book just shines, I wished him well. I wanted him to be happy, and I wanted him to find a friend, and I wanted him to get to know himself, and I wanted him to be a poet. I wanted him to have all his dreams come true. It really is that kind of book that holds you and nourishes you and devours you, you know? So rare and so beautiful, and what a joy it is to read you, Jerry, really. I'm really interested, maybe as a writer, maybe as someone who does a little bit of creative writing, teaching, all that thing. I'm really interested in authorial intention. You know, at the very sort of detailed nitty-gritty level, sort of why this word and not some other word? Why this character at this point in the story and not some other point? Why do you begin here? Why do you end here, right? So these are all decisions that the author has taken off the page and on the page, and you don't quite see this. It's the, you know, the behind the scenes. So I'm always interested in those things, and of course, while we can't quite delve into the nitty-gritty craft level, I want to know on a much broader scale how it was, why it was that you came to write this book at this particular time in your life.
I think one of the things that I remember about the center of this book, or the time that this book was happening inside my head, was that I was thinking very constantly about loneliness, and about it being something that was afflicting everybody. I could tell, you know, my neighbors. There was one old lady who had lived with her entire family, and now she was alone. And so therefore, you know, as one walked past, one rang the bell, one said hello, how are you all right, do you need anything, every morning. Also because you are afraid that she might have fallen down, so then if she does not reply, there's a key, all that sort of thing is happening. And on the other level, as you're walking through the streets, everybody seems to be on their cell phones, ignoring each other. So, you know, you could walk into a barista and have 4 young people sitting around a table, having crossed the city from various places, arrived to be together, and simply ignoring each other, you know, paying attention to their cell phones. And I think the reason why loneliness was such an intriguing thing is because obviously we are built for association, right? We are built to reach out to each other. We created this beautiful and immense superstructure called language in order that we would be able to talk to each other, in order that we would be able to remember each other. And yet it seems that in a city where there is so much possibility, especially there is loneliness. And there is a constant loneliness. And I remember this book started as a short story. It was, I think someone wrote to me and said, you know, publishers, some editors in publishing houses have the ability to throw you large briefs which don't make any sense. We would like a young adult story, please. Meaning, what is that mean at all?
As Yuri would say, means?
No, so you leave it in the back of your head and you let it bubble. And then one day walking to the station, I thought loneliness is something that young adults face when they break free of the family in a little way. Like they haven't been popped out into the greater world yet, but they are wanting to go. They're like dragging, they're pulling at their strings and pushing the family away and looking outward into the larger world, terrified. Terrified of the possibility that there won't be anyone to grab them if they fall. Like when they're free falling into the world and into the world of friendship, you have to have someone who grabs you and then you fall together. And you can fall endlessly together, but you're holding someone's hand. That's, I think, the central thing. And so I started with, that's where I started. Yuri walking to the station, thinking, praying, saying, I want a friend. I want a friend. Please, just a friend.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you all look like very civilized people. Yeah. And, you know, sort of like people who would have probably made their first friends at the age of 3 in the playground. I didn't go to playgrounds. I went to a school where nobody read books, so I was alone. I didn't have friends in school. So when I made my first friend at the age of 14 and something, I burned, literally burned. And that memory is so clear that when I think about that first friend that I had, I always stop a moment and just say thank you. Because it's clear inside my head. You've forgotten. You've forgotten because you made that friendship at the age of 3. And it was, recently I saw something that totally verified this for me, this suspicion. There was a 3-year-old child being dragged home, wailing by her mother. And I said, "Kya hua bachchi ko?" Because one asks, what happened to the child? And she says, "Kya bataun, sir? Subah ko dadi se jud ke, when she leaves dadi, she's crying. I take her to the playground and then she's leaving her friend, she's crying." Okay? And that's it. That memory, that intensity happens at the age of 3. And you can take it at the age of 3 because everything is intense. You will taste sugar and it will be intense. Chocolate will blow your brain. Okay? Your first, I don't know, ice cream. Everything is rich and lovely. By the time you're 14, you're a bit jaded. And so to have a friend when you're 14 and a half, and that burns inside your brain, it is unforgettable. So every new friend, like I remember when Ravi Singh, my publisher, arrived, he was supposed to have a 15-minute meeting with me in Bombay about surviving women, my first book. Okay, and I saw him coming from a distance across and looking a little perplexed at the Times of India's large expanse. And I thought to myself, friend. Okay, and I was not wrong. And off we went, and I said, we can't sit here, this is a toxic place, we have to go out. So both of us went out, and about 5 hours later, I showed him the city, I took him to bookshops and whatnot. He said, I do have other things to do. But I sort of thought, like, okay, sure, go do whatever other things you want to do. But the joy of the day was complete. Friend, new friend. That's just, yeah. And I think undervalued in this world of like, sex all the time. We forget how joyous friendship also can be. And of course, fucking is also joyous. No argument about that. Done right, it is joyous with a little laughter.
Well, I love this book for many reasons, but what you just said about loneliness being this sort of simmering texture that runs through it all um, is so true. You know, there's Yuri at the center of it, really beginning the book with, I want a friend. You know, it's that simple and that sweet and that heartbreaking. But also, this is a book that presses so close to life. You know, it really is filled quite, and I go back to this word, quite deliciously with the things of life, the complications of life. And I was just, you know, reminded of this line from a review that this book got that said, you know, the education of Yuri in structure and story is less novel-like than life-like. And I was just wondering if that's something that resonated with you.
See, every good review resonates, I have to say. Like, Janice wrote a lovely review, and I'm thinking, Arey, so talented and so thoughtful and so perceptive. I, you, this is stupid, but you know, when you have written a book, you have peeled off your skin, and you are really naked. So we pretend when bad reviews come that, you know, well, you know, like, it's not everybody's book, and you know, of course, some people will not like it because they're just basically fundamentally stupid idiots. It's like that. But on the other hand, I think that line and many lines from your review, Janice, often help you see something in a book that you wrote that you have not intended, and then you think, oh, is that so? Sometimes it's kind of not quite what you think, and then there's a slight resistance where you think, you know, no, that's not my intention. But you learn very quickly that the book, once it is out there, and this is such a beautiful thing, is no longer yours. It is now someone else's property. Each person who has read it and responded to it has made it their book. And it is their interpretation and it's like, you know, when you've read a book, when you're little and you read a book and you have an image in your head, right? Like you've read Gone with the Wind and you think Scarlett O'Hara, then you look at Vivian Leigh and you think, ye kaun hai? This is not Scarlett O'Hara. I want some more depth and I want some more texture in my Scarlett O'Hara because she's different. That's because of ownership. And when you read a review and you see that there is ownership that has been taken of the book, and explanations that you of these, or you know, comments like this, you're just really happy that your little kid went out in the world and found a new parivar. Like,
found
you know,
a friend.
Baito beta. Okay, it is with Janice now. Very good.
You know, Yuri and all of the other characters in the book inhabit very, you know, very deliberately the early 80s, the early to mid 80s, right? And it's a very particular time, it's a very particular place, of course, and we'll get to that in a bit, but I'm interested in that bit of historical time. And you conjure it so well through adverts. I mean, I thought that was really just the most delicate stroke of genius. Adverts are so time-bound, right? Through the food that they eat, of course, through the various kind of movements that are happening around them, social movements, political movements, the mill workers, for example, all of that. And it's a very deliberate conjuring of the 80s in Bombay, in India. But I'm interested in another question, which is how much of the present informs your writing of the past?
Arey, what a beautiful question, really. You know, one of the great temptations when I was writing Yuri, see, each time the nation took a body blow, okay? And in the 80s, early 80s, we took some severe body blows. I know, you know, looking back from where we are now, those were like we fell and grazed our knees. And what body blows were you thinking about? But to go back there and to remember what it was like when Rajiv Gandhi was assassinated and the whole of that new world that he was conjuring up was falling. To be to walk through a market getting very quiet because everyone was downing shutters and going off home because there were riots somewhere. And in Bhiwandi there were riots because someone had been garlanded with chappals. And each time when we returned to normalcy, the feeling that Bombay was an exception, that Bombay had a different agenda, that we were simply devotees of Mammon, we were the can-do city, we just did, and we got back to doing as quickly as possible. And somewhere out in the hinterland, there were these excitable Indians who were, you know, rioting over gods and demons. It was a 92 completely ruined that for us. But Yuri's life stops at 1985. To give him prescience was such a temptation. You wanted to make him the kind who would say, and this is not going to end well. This will have repercussions right into the future. But no one of us thought that. We really thought that this was like hiccups. This was terrible things that were happening, but they were contained by the basic integrity of the constitution, by the integrity of the pillars of democracy. Actually, even saying it, sharma jata hoon. But we really thought that we could never have guessed. Never, ever have guessed. We could not have even guessed the Babri Masjid. There was no way. No way any of this seemed like it could possibly be happening. And so, in the 8 or 9 years that it took to write Yuri, as the world was changing dramatically, you're going back to a world of that kind, and you're limiting the vision, because limit the vision. No, Yuri, you do not know what is happening. You cannot know what is happening. Remember what it was like then. And going back to that was, you know, very, very, very difficult.
It was quite an act of restraint then, in a lot of ways, right? Because you know, Yuri doesn't, but you know all too well. The other thing that I loved about the book is this incredible cast of characters, and they are lively, and they are very human, and they are nasty and mean and funny and all of these things that, you know, all of us are in this wicked, messy, you know, set of relationships that we sort of conjure throughout our lives. I love the dialogue. Oh, the dialogue is sparkling. I mean, there's so much that sparkles in this book, but the dialogue is so fun. I wonder if you actually read it out loud. That was, you know, one of the things that was in my head as I was reading people speak on the page. And they swerve between languages, not so much Yuri, of course, because he speaks English and that sets him apart. But there's all of these swerving between languages. There's, you know, all of these, you know, deliberate things that they're interested in, the movies, this and that, and they're so alive. But I was wondering, Jerry, when does a character die for you on the page? What I mean is, when does a character not ring true for you? Is it something they say? Is it something they do? And when does a character then come alive?
I think, you know, see, for a writer, and Janice, you know this also, you often need a character. Like, you need a character, you think, okay, maybe there has to be someone here who will say this to my character so that my character will recognize this about himself, because he can't or she can't possibly have thought this up herself. So one often produces mirrors, which you just place at a certain position, and yeah. Now, that seems like such a cop-out when you actually do it. You do it and you feel that moment of relief. You think, okay, this has been sorted, I've done it, but inevitably the mirror is very thin, yeah? And it is a mirage. The whole of it is a mirage. So even though you plow on, you know you will have to come back and remove that mirror and find a way to get this working again. Because you don't want to keep on introducing characters that have, you know, have very little to do with the plot, because that confuses. That's on the really literal thing. Yes. On the kind of how shall I put it, the mechanical way of thinking about it. Yeah, the craft.
The level,
Level
yes,
of
the
craft.
level
yeah?
of craft, yeah.
But there is another one which is the intrusive character. Okay. So the intrusive character comes in for a guest appearance, and you think, oh yeah, 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 I'll have this young man who is riding a bullet and is very, you know, like, oi, 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 hey, hey, vodja, like that kind of person, because those were also in college, right? And suddenly this person is taking center stage. He's pushing his way in, and you're saying, Arif, 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 I don't, Arif, why are you here? And Arif is there, okay?
He's very there.
Yeah, exactly. And he is telling you, my mamu has 3 nipples, and what? It's like, why is your mamu in
What
my
is going
book?
on?
But my mamu has 3 nipples is just like a line that you, once you have written, you are committed to.
Yeah, you
You
cannot
cannot,
take it away.
you cannot
You
get
cannot.
rid of it. It is there. Now it is a fundamental fact. And for me, somehow, actually, you know, if they speak to me, if they start talking, then I get it. I get it. You're going to be here and you're going to be important, that's fine. If they don't speak, then they're not going to be important. I know they're not going to be important. And each character has to have, like, I have to get that sound right. If it is a Sahasrabuddhe who has been educated in Maharashtra around the 1960s, he will have a certain way of speaking. And because I think, you know, everybody seems to think research is looking in old documents. Research is other people. That is research. Research is turning when you are sitting on the bus and asking the person next to you, very hot, no? The other person will say, very hot. Then you can say, but you are wearing nice dress, where you got? That person will say, Are, you don't know, this is like 350 rupees, so saste mein, I got it. And a conversation will develop. You are not interested in anything that the person is saying, except you're listening to rhythm. How does this person talk? How does this person feel? And eventually you will come to SaaS ka problem, you will come to, you know, office mate, politics, all that. If you have a long enough bus journey, the lovely thing about India, the lovely thing is you can get onto a train. My first train ride was to Banaras. And I got into the train, there was an old man in front of me. Yeah, in 36 hours. And I said to him, he had a bandage on his leg. So I said, Chacha, kya hua? And he said, Arey beta, kya bataun? And he put his leg up and he undid the bandage. Then he showed me where there was, like, you know, silai had been done. Then he pressed it and he said, see, abhi nikal raha hai pani, abhi nikal raha hai. And I'm looking at it and thinking, wow. Then we wrapped the bandage together again. Then I thought I must wash my hands. And then he said, now, you know, these modern people will want to wash their hands. So I thought, no, I am an ancient person. So I sat down next to him and I said, but not to eat anything, not to eat anything, not to put hand near mouth, it was going to mouth. You know, how can you not just engage when this wealth is being thrown at you? Thrown at you, low-hanging fruit, people telling you stories. So when I see young people, you know, with their earpods in their thing and listening to Spotify or whatever it is you're listening to, I get it if you're a woman. You know, someone is going to say, be my friend, come home. All that shit is going to happen, yeah. I know. But if you feel that it is not going to happen, then that Fosterian line, only connect. Yeah?
Yeah, and you can sense it. Can we just... You can sense it so easily and so profoundly in this book. There is so much engagement, you know, in terms of not just conversation, but I can see why that kind of research translates so easily onto the page, Jerry. It's so palpable, you know. I did have a question about place. I'm a completely non-Bombay person.
Poor thing.
I know. I'm a Shillong person.
Okay. Well, I'm a Shillong person.
But I would like you to perhaps maybe approach your response keeping this in mind, that I don't...
That you're a Shillong person?
No, that I don't know Bombay.
Okay.
I have a fleeting, lovely acquaintance with Bombay, but I don't know it. And of course, Yuri discovering, you know, the Bombay of the time, of course, but but a Bombay nonetheless was also in some ways a discovery of the city, for me. That kind of measurement that Yuri takes of the city and the kind of measurement that the city takes of Yuri, I got that, I understood that, and I wanted to immerse myself in this city in a way that I've never really been able to do over a fleeting weekend. But has your relationship with Bombay changed while writing this book? Has it shifted in any way?
See, my relationship with Bombay is that of a 18-year-old boy confronted with Nadira in Mud Mud Ke Na Dekh. So Nadira is smoking a cigarette and blowing smoke rings, and I'm going after her panting, saying, "Harry, please look at my direction. Hello, hey." And of course, the city is too large and too busy and too multifarious for anyone to actually claim it. That doesn't stop us from claiming it. We all claim it in certain ways, and it all rejects us in certain ways. So people keep talking about Bombay versus Mumbai and whatnot, and I keep saying Bombay rejects you entirely if you are not, someone who can say that, when Begum Bilkis Latif came to my house in 1957 and we had tea cakes together, which I flew in from Fleury's, darling, because they really made good tea cakes in those days.
That accent.
Yeah, I know, but they have bad accents too. So mine is a good accent. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, I'm saying there's a certain kind of Anglophone elite which wants to have it as Bombay and wants it frozen there. But the Mumbai that I would also like to up now is a city of parochialism. It's a city that says son of the soil. It's a city that says you are a Goan, wherever you come from, go back to that city. So there is rejection on all sides. This doesn't stop you from having a toxic relationship with a city, right? And a toxic relationship is a relationship which you know is bad for you, but which you're still enjoying anyway, in a dirty, perverse kind of way. Mujhe maar, fir se, aaja, aaja. Come on, hit me again. What do you do?
The last time I met Jerry was in Delhi a few months ago at his book launch. And the first thing he said when he saw me, and we hadn't met each other for years because pandemic, all that. But the first thing he tells me when he meets me is, "Quit your job." I'm like, okay then.
Zahir hai na, quit your job. What is the ridiculous nonsense?
Hello, Jay. It's lovely to meet you too. But he went on to say, and this is what sort of my question is connected to, he went on to say that, quit your job and begin your stewardship. In the sense that begin your stewardship of your writing, of your craft.
Of her talent. She can't say it suddenly because she suddenly felt like, "Arey, main kya bol rahi hu? If I say it, then they will think I'm saying I am talented." But, see, I think, and this goes out to all of you also, okay, whatever your religion says, you have this one shot. This, now, one shot, okay? You may die and get another better shot, that's Hinduism. You may die and go to heaven and then everything is resolved, that's Christianity. All that is there. But you have this one shot. Don't waste your one shot. Go out there and just grab it. Whatever it is, grab it. Not if it's another human being, then consent. I suddenly thought, North India, you have to be clear. Okay. So I'm saying, I look at Janice and I know that she's teaching, and just now one sweet young person came and said, hello Janice. And Janice, being Janice, inclined her head at exactly the right angle and said, "Hello, darling." And darling is a way of saying, "I don't know your name, but tell me. If you tell me now, I'll be able to say, how are you? Of course I remember." I'm much more brutal. I say, "Tell me what your name is. I don't remember who you are." I've also taught for 30 years. But I do actually believe that we all used to, we all have to take that big jump at some point, right? Then, okay, 2 weeks after we had this conversation, I'm hoping that I've done my good deed for the day and I have woken Janice up. Janice writes to me. I'll tell them what you wrote to me, email.
What did I write?
What email you wrote?
I don't remember.
Tenure.
Yes.
Yeah. I am applying for tenure. अरे tenure! क्या कर रही है tenure लेके? I thought you were supposed to quit your job and start writing full time. But anyway.
Everything in its own time.
No, and that's the other thing about about being like the kind of moofat and idiot I am. I will say, and it is my time which you should follow. If I say quit now, then you have to quit now.
Jerry's way and no other way. But really, my question was.
Oh, sorry, you had a question. Okay.
Somewhere in there, I did. You often speak of this relationship as one of stewardship, and I just wanted to know if you could share with us what that meant to you. How have you been a good, a bad, a completely useless, a completely marvelous steward?
No. I think, see, to begin with, I made up to the age of 35, grim reality. I had to make a certain amount of money a day for my mother's nursing and for her expenses, which kind of, if you've read M and the Big Home, you know that story. I'm not going there. And I also had to like run the family also. So I was making money till 35. When I was 35, my mother finally died. I apologize for saying that word finally, but also, it was also part of my feeling at that time, so I don't apologize. It's truthful. And I should have quit all work immediately at that point and said, I'm out here now. I'm going to write. I didn't, but then, I gave myself the excuse that they say, when you've had a big shock, you mustn't change things too radically and whatnot. And like the central khamba of my life had gone. Everything I had decided before that for 35 years or 30 years was based on my mother's illness. I had to keep, that was the factor that I had to play into. So for a few years, it took me to realize that I was free, that I could possibly make choices that had nothing to do with anything other than what I wanted to do. But it took 5 years. And at the age of 40, I came to Jaipur to the literary festival. I had a moment here. I've told that moment endless times, so I'm not going to tell it again. And then on the way back to Bombay, I said to myself, time. 40. Time. Stop this. Do what you must be. Okay, what is really joyful in my life is to get up in the morning and then say, what do I want to do today?
Oh, I cannot tell you how incredibly important that question is and why it is so important. Oh,
if you think about it, like actually, many of you put up your hands if you're not married. Very good. Put your hands down. When you get married, you will discover what you lost. Freedom. When you have children, then Chunnu and Munnu and Tunnu will determine your life. Someone will ring up and say, coming to Bali, I have tickets, and you'll say, Arey yaar, Chunnu ki unit test hai, main kya karun? He needs me to sit next to him and do his mathematics, otherwise he doesn't do his mathematics. Chunnu, let Chunnu fail mathematics. What does it matter? Arey, don't talk like that, Jerry. It's only a unit test. Why do they call it unit? 1 unit it is. It's not even decimal. It's not even tens. It's unit test. Let her go. Come to Bali. Let him fail. I'm not having this conversation, Jerry. And you think, oh, you're offended? You're offended because I said unshubily that this child might fail his mathematics test. What kind of people are parents, yeah? And it never ends. 40-year-old children you will be dragging around saying, Ari, please give him a job now, please. He's a good boy. Yeah. He lost his last 5 jobs, but give him a job. So, freedom is what you discover is eroded systematically by your choices, including your votes. Okay? So, recovering freedom. There is a period when you are truly free. Okay, when you're a baby. You want to shit, you shit. Clear it, you tell your parents. Come on, that's your job. Do your job. Do it well. I like a clean ass. Here, some here also. Anyway, shoo. Okay, so that's like one level of it. That's your first and only phase of freedom. As you begin to get toilet trained, no one will let you be free again. Okay, then Delhi public school mein entry milna hai ki nahi? Jack and Jill went up the hill. I'm a little kettle. I'm a little teapot, short and stout. All shit. You'll study nursery rhymes. And for the rest of your life, around 35, 40, around what time you are, idiot? You have to recover freedom. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Huh. So, and recovering freedom actually requires very, very strong measures. Quit your job, divorce your parent, divorce your parents also, divorce your spouse, tell your children, अरे संभाल ले यार, मैगी खा, ट्यूशन पे जा, मेरे को नहीं होना ये. And then, like, so okay, here's the secret that Yuri will learn when, you know, in the rest of the the rest of his life. He will learn that freedom is lonely, and love makes you vulnerable and makes you a ghulam. You're locked by love, by choice. Yeah.
I mean, yes. I have a gazillion questions which I have not been able to ask. I wonder why. But, you know, I will also just throw this open to our absolutely wonderful captive audience, because I know you have lots of questions for him, and
But I hang around and I will answer questions anywhere you ask.
Of course.
Toilet
of
mein
course.
mila to you can ask me also.
So shall we throw this open
Yeah.
to everyone?
Put up your
out
hand, make a
there
quick
and
question.
There's a lady there with the black scarf, yes, and then a gentleman there in the red jacket, and a gentleman here in a grey jacket. There we go.
Hi, my question is about Bombay and love. So if you've seen Modern Love Mumbai, there was a story about Sarika falling in love with a younger male guy. And it's very sexual, but at the same time, it is very, distant. I wanted to ask you, since you, talk so much about Bombay and cosmopolitanism and the city, do you think a story like that is only possible in Bombay?
No. They put it in Bombay because Bombay has the reputation. ये लोग ऐसे करेंगे, हम तो नहीं करेंगे. बॉम्बे वाले करते हैं. हाँ जी, हमारे यहाँ तो सभ्यता होती है. बम्बई में ना जाने क्या क्या चलते हैं. Happens everywhere. Over here. Okay, go ahead.
And there's
Gentleman with jacket.
Okay.
a
Wow.
gentleman at the back.
So I've been trying to ask you a question for about 2 or 3 sessions of yours so far, Jerry. And first of all, I loved your session yesterday at the Jaipur Math Festival with Simon. And so the question is, I'm a stand-up comic and I also write. And I see that whenever I meet somebody new, I hear a new story. I feel like every face tells me a new story. And you talk about how incredible it was meeting that person in the train to Banaras. Do you still do that? Like, do you still go out and talk randomly to people and and do that for inspiration? And
I don't do that at JLF.
Of course.
Because at JLF, they are all, like, vultures who, if you talk to them, they might take your story. They're all writers. Yeah, so you have to be careful here. Idhar to sambhal ke rehna padta hai. But outside JLF, outside a literary festival, I will talk to everyone, including the hijra. Say, hey, beta, hey, kaat ke rakhunga. I'm happy to chat to anybody at any time. The only point is that in Bombay also, it's generally on a train, and I have to get off the train at some point. Yeah? So then sometimes you say, hold that thought. I'll come back next time and I'll ask you again. But no, talking and, no, okay, I'll tell you. We pay far too much attention to talking. We do not teach our children at all active, engaged listening. If we taught listening, we would all suddenly go back to a world where we could talk to a right-wing person and listen to them. And they would listen to us. And we would then stop this rubbish that is going on in the country. Because we are just not listening. We are shouting at each other. So I think active listening is an act of democracy. Thank you for the question.
Thank you very much. When I quit my job, I'll CC this video to my boss.
In the front here, a young lady in the striped skirt.
Hi, Jerry. First, let me say I totally love you. I love your books. One question I wanted to ask you was that you come across as an extremely empathetic person, right? And I wonder that, and every character you write with a lot of empathy. Do you come across people that you're saying, this person I don't want to write about this person?
No, never.
This person's
in
thoughts
fact, the more
just
toxic
don't.
they are, the more lovely it is. Because, like, I mean, you know, you always are looking for a villain, right? Like, in Mogambo, Mr. India, you remember Mogambo, and you remember them jumping into the acid, saying, "Hail Mogambo," and jumping into the acid and becoming pink acid. Who has pink acid? I think Mogambo must have been gay. In that acid, they become, it's like, that was a genius stroke. Pink acid was a genius stroke. So even like when you meet someone like terribly, polished, who knows where everyone lives in Delhi. Oh no, darling, not GK2. She is, I don't know, Arkepuram.
Yeah, because that's
We don't
beyond
talk
the
to
ring
Arkepuram.
road.
Yeah.
On the wrong side.
Yeah, exactly. And he is Jamuna Par. Oh God. Is he contagious? Would he affect my PIN code? I'm just like, what? I love that sort of person. They are my meat and bread. In fact, often I also, good people are rare to find, are very hard to find, but they are a lot more difficult to do. Good is very difficult to do. Because it's kind of, it's got such bad rap, right? Like you're boring if you're good. And that's not true. Good is magnificent in its own way. Yeah. Last question, we have 1.36. Yeah, over there. Yeah. Quick ones are us.
What was that moment? I haven't heard it, though you might have told it.
Oh, the JLF moment. Oh, the JLF moment was a very funny, very odd moment. Salman Rushdie was coming for the first time. Suketu Mehta was coming. My friend Naresh Fernandez knew Suketu Mehta. So he told Suketu, at one point you have to sit Jerry at a table. There has to be an agent at the table. Salman has to be there and Suketu has to be there. And you have to let Jerry tell a story. Okay? So, and then they will sign him up for the big book. So I said, so I thought, nice. And Suketu being a little drunk, and Salman was there, and David Godwin was there. Bless his sweet and ineffective soul. All of them were there around the table. He never sold my book for nuts. Anyway, so all around the table. And Suketu was very drunk, slammed the table and said, now Jerry will tell a story. And I thought, Arey, not like this. Meaning it's like, Aja Nach. Like, chal. And I had just written the book on Helen. So I thought, chin chin choo, I will go. And I told a story, okay? And then David Godwin said, if you ever write this, I will represent you. So on the way home, I said, it's all set up now. David Godwin will represent you. You've been told you can write a novel. Write the novel, Jerry. And I went home and quit my job, which was with Naresh Fernandez. And he said, bye very happily.
It was all an elaborate ploy, clearly.
Okay.
But can we take one more question? The gentleman at the back who's had his hand up
Yeah,
for
yeah.
ages, just
Okay.
there.
Hello, sir.
Hi.
My question to you is very different because I am being a researcher and the way you have described research is quite different. And after reading a lot of books from all the way from Shakespeare to present day books, the recent book that I was reading was Art of Seduction by Robert Greene. And that reminds me of a character of natural in your personality that I can very well see.
Robert Greene?
Yes, sir.
I love you. I read that book. It is a toxic, terrible book. And particularly frightening is the fact that it attracts young men who think that it will work. And then they come up to me and they say, have you read Robert Greene? And I say, no, I have not. I would advise you to actually just put it down immediately and go back to being you. You are irreplaceable.
Sir, one man's mean is another man's
You
poison.
are unique.
Okay.
There is nothing. Mother Nature, the wasteful bitch, took a lot of trouble to make you unique. And you are trying to be like Robert Greene. What sense does that make? Come on, yeah, go find, what's your name? Nikhil. Nikhil, go find Nikhil. रॉबर्ट ग्रीन को मारो गोली. चलो, see you.
I mean, it is only too evident that when you are around Jerry or when you are with his books, you are around life. And thank you, Jerry.